Hi there. A lot of people ask me, they say, Scott, you're a leadership consultant, but what is leadership? Is it really that important anyway? I'm always caught off guard when people ask me, is leadership important? Because to me it's really obvious, but I guess maybe I'm biased. Leadership is extremely important. Leadership is not just a position in a hierarchy. Leadership is a choice, it's a way of life, it's a philosophy. What is leadership? Leadership is about having a vision, it's about caring for your people, it's about meeting the emotional needs of your people, it's about inspiring trust in others. Jack Welch said, when you become a leader, it's not about you anymore. You give up that right. It's all about your people. That's a wonderful hint into what leadership truly is. Stephen R. Covey always said, leadership is about communicating the worth and potential of people so clearly that people come to see that worth and potential within themselves. Another beautiful illustration of what leadership is. Beautiful quote. Ken Blanchard talks about servant leadership. Back in the industrial age, people were seen more as things, where the leader was on top and all their people were on the bottom, and the people on the bottom served the leader. However, in the 21st century, a whole new model of leadership is required. Ken Blanchard talks about reversing the organizational hierarchy so that the leaders on the bottom serving all the people. The complete opposite. That's servant leadership. Another wonderful example of what leadership really is. Now I'm going to provide you with some examples of people in my history that I've been directly exposed to who I believe demonstrate quality leadership. When I was in high school, in grade 12, I finally made my high school basketball team. However, I wasn't on the starting lineup. I was more of the glorified towel boy, bench warmer, water boy, and kind of helping out the star players. On the occasional game, I got a few minutes in. But it's just because I wasn't one of the better players. It had nothing to do with the coach. So Coach Neil Kearley, one day he could sense that I wasn't certain about myself. He could tell I wasn't sure about myself. So he came over to me. He looked me straight in the face, kind of bent down a little bit, and he said, Scott, if I had a boy, I would want him to be just like you. I'll never forget that. Now that's leadership. If you happen to know Neil Kearley, he's a principal now at Ascension. Tell him I said hi and thank you. Next, I had the great fortune to meet the great General Rick Hillier when he was the Chief of Defense Staff. On the first occasion, he did a countrywide tour during the early days of Canada's contribution to Afghanistan, and he came to St. John's, Newfoundland, briefed the Newfoundland troops on the mission, and to my shock and awe, the majority of his presentation was about the beauty of the people in Afghanistan. It was about their humanity. That really left an impression on me, and that's leadership. The second time that I met General Hillier, it was one-on-one. Dr. Lily Walker, former Dean of Student Affairs, had a meet and greet for all the students of Memorial University. I brought along a few members of my platoon with the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. We came along, and General Hillier came over to me and said, hi Scott. I was taken off guard that he even knew my first name. It wasn't just Lieutenant Butler or Mr. Butler. And he said, you did some great work with your kickboxing. I'm very impressed. He said, your accomplishments in some ways surpassed my own. I was completely floored. And he went on to talk about my university contributions and also some of my Army contributions. For the Chief of Defense Staff, who's on the media, who's on the news all the time, to know that much about little Lieutenant Butler, that's leadership. Most certainly. Last example for you. When I was a training development officer with the regular force, I served a few years with the Royal Canadian Navy. At the time, the Canadian Forces Naval Engineering School Commander Simon Page was the commanding officer there. There was hundreds of people in this unit, one of the biggest units in the Canadian Forces, I believe. And he knew pretty much everyone's first name. He knew details about each person, their family, their children. He knew about their welfare, their interests. He would spend time every day slowly walking through the crowd, getting to know people, always positive. You could tell he cared. Like John C. Maxwell says, people don't care what you know until that they know that you care. Well, Commander Simon Page, he certainly demonstrated that, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's an admiral now. I'm no longer in the forces. I released about 7 months ago, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's called upon to be a flag officer. So, what is leadership? I believe it's clearly communicated what leadership is over the short video. So, call to action for you is to find people in your own life, observe them who demonstrate leadership qualities. It can be your next door neighbor, it doesn't have to be a formal leader, and look at them and think about how you are like them and maybe how you can become more like them and take on those qualities that will make you a fantastic leader, and that is an investment that you'll always have for yourself.